love, justice, respect, equality, kindness, compassion, equal in dignity, and rights. Hello and welcome to Equal in Dignity and Rights by the Wasmuth Center for Human Rights, home of the Idaho Anne Frank Human Rights Memorial. Today, you'll be introduced to another person of influence whose words are also etched into the stone of the Idaho Anne Frank Human Rights Memorial. At the end of this video, we'll prompt you with a few questions that will get you started in today's virtual journal entry. Remember, there is no right or wrong answer to what you write. You are human, equal in dignity and rights. If you haven't already, you'll probably become accustomed to hearing the name Gandhi. Today's influencer, Mahatma Gandhi, was born on October 2nd, 1869, in Gujarat, India. Born to a humble family with a few older siblings, Gandhi would grow to become one of the most influential promoters of nonviolent, peaceful protest as a way to effectively counter oppression. At the time of Gandhi's birth, India was under British colonial rule. Gandhi grew up with humble beginnings. He was set up as a teenager in an arranged marriage to a teenage wife who would eventually become the mother of his children. He began his own family at the age of 16, but by 18, at the protest of his family, moved to London to study law at University College, London. Gandhi's activism really began after finishing law school and leaving London at the age of 22 and moving to South Africa to practice law. It was the racism he experienced in South Africa that caused him to begin thinking about oppression. The European inhabitants lodged racial insults at Gandhi. They even spit on him, and he faced severe persecution physically and socially. He tried to appeal to the humanity of the Europeans who occupied South Africa at the time, but he was met with more resistance and more persecution. It was through these experiences that Gandhi realized that no matter how much he made the claim that Indians were civilized, intelligent, and sophisticated, the Europeans would never consider them as equals simply because their worldview was predicated on a racial hierarchy. His disillusionment with the European worldview led him to lead movements of Indian and African resistance to the inhumane practices and laws in South Africa by organizing the community in nonviolent protest. Gandhi returned to India in 1915 with a newfound belief in Indian suffrage and also with a method of activism that would become his signature practice: nonviolent, peaceful protest called non-cooperation. At the time of Gandhi's adulthood, British occupation and rule caused division and strife among the Indian population. Although Gandhi originally helped the British Empire during World War I, encouraging Indians to fight on the side of the British, with the promise of Indian independence after the war, because the British did not make good on their promise, he began leading movements against British rule and British policies that would be oppressive to Indian citizens. His peaceful protests included boycotting British goods, adorning themselves in traditional Indian wear, and peaceful gatherings. When British law officers opened fire on peaceful protesters, killing women, children, and men, riots spread across India. From the 1920s through the 1940s, Gandhi participated in the British India Congress and led several movements of nonviolent campaigns and the boycotting of British goods, and they were effective in crippling the India-British economy, causing Gandhi to be a target of British political malice. He was arrested several times, spending stints of up to 2 years at a time in prison. His arrest and fast only inspired more Indians to join his nonviolent movement. The British police state arrested tens of thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands of Indian protesters at a time over the years of Gandhi's non-violent campaigns and boycotts. His movement became interrupted by World War II. During that time, he denounced Hitler, Germany, and Nazism, but while also protesting Indian participation in the war through the British Army because he believed that Indians could not help fight for freedom of another people when they themselves were not free of British rule. Gandhi's most famous speech, demanding Britain to quit India, was one of his most provocative rallying cries in 1942 and led to his final 2-year imprisonment by the British colonizers. During that time, he was openly criticized by Winston Churchill, who was Prime Minister of Britain at the time. It took 3 more years of negotiating with the British government after Gandhi's release from jail for India to finally be granted its independence from Britain on August 15, 1947. Although this achievement was an incredible advancement for Indian society, it came with a mixed response because of Britain's insistence on splitting India into 2 countries, one Hindu and one Muslim, against Gandhi's wishes. Millions of Muslim and Hindu citizens were forced to migrate into what is now called Pakistan, the Muslim side, and India, the Hindu side, based on their religion. In 1948, at the age of 78, Gandhi was assassinated by a disenfranchised Hindu radical who blamed Gandhi for the violence and chaos created by the Muslim-Hindu split of India. Gandhi's teachings on nonviolence, inspired by Indian religious texts, have gone on to inspire countless movements as an example to overcome hate and oppression through peace. He was even one of the many inspirations to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Mahatma Gandhi. Now it's your turn. No need to wait a single moment. Through the Schoology portal, we've left a space for you to record your thoughts. You may want to pause the video after each question to give yourself some time to write. There are a total of 3 questions. Here are the questions to help get you started. If Gandhi were alive today, how do you think he would see his influence on the world and society in which we live? Gandhi encourages us to be the change we wish to see in the world. You've written a lot about human rights over the weeks. What other changes would you like to see in the world? How do you think you can be the change? Why do you think Gandhi's use of nonviolence was so effective in securing India's independence from Britain? Take your time. Remember, this is your journal, your diary. You can be honest with your thoughts. Just as Mahatma Gandhi teaches us through his work, never forget how we can positively change the world when we are all equal in dignity and rights.